There he goes, a final public appearance by the last victorious ITC car. The Mercedes C-Class completes the final laps in Stuttgart's Gottlieb-Daimler Stadium. And AMG's mechanics show us what can be done during short intermissions, like changing a motor in 5 minutes. The final straight leads us unswervingly to the Mercedes Museum in Untertürkheim. In its 3-year career in both the DTM and ITC, the racing version of the C-Class notched up 34 wins. All in all, Mercedes was victorious 84 times, but now new chapters had to be written from scratch. The racing formula was going to be the new FIA GT Championship. For Mercedes, it fitted in well as the third prong on their three-pointed star, besides Formula One and the American Kart Series. First thoughts dwelled on strong ties to the production models, racing as a message, conveying news, good news. For example, winning technology clothed in a striking silhouette. Spell it CLK. Winter came early this year, and at the beginning of December, the future started at AMG. An ideal notion was parallel development. The introduction of the CLK production series was to coincide with the world debut of the racing car and its roadster version. An unprecedented race against the clock began. The mother of all high-tech is still the hand-drawn sketch, which then goes on to find its form and measure with computer-aided design. Chief racing engineer Gerhard Unger just about carries AMG's entire knowledge under his bonnet. Only with this depth of experience would anyone dare to start all over from the tiniest screw upwards. Picking the newest research data out of the flow, the model builders were the next guys down the line, translating the virtual graphics of the car's design into a 1:5 scale reality. Turning the CLK into a racer and a road-going version was something which fitted like a glove into its current market identity. The board of directors was convinced that the basics were there and gave the green light for a prototype before Christmas. The new year had hardly begun before the first trial motor was on the test bench. Admittedly, the CLK's power pack was the easier part of the exercise, because the V12 already exists in production models, where it does its job in both the S600 and the SL600. In racing trim, the 6000cc engine produces more than 600 horsepower at 7,000 revolutions per minute. Just when the production of single components started, from the tube frame and gearbox to the cable harnesses, the new Formula One Silver Arrow, the McLaren Mercedes MP412, was already fit to race. At its presentation in London, its colours, at once nostalgic and fresh, caught everyone's eye. The date was the 16th of February, and at AMG, it was the 91st day of its own new project. Later, on the 3rd of March, the American kart season kicked off in the new Homestead Oval near Miami. At home in Schwaben, day 106 saw the seating rehearsal for a new troupe of team drivers. Alessandro Nannini enrolled, enriching Mercedes with the spirit of Italy. For 7 years, Bernd Schneider has stood for consistency in the Mercedes racing scene. Side by side with the experienced pilots came new young talents. Marcel Thiemann joins Nannini. Austria's Alexander Wurz pairs up with Schneider. The third pair consists of Klaus Ludwig and Bernd Mailänder. A week after kart in the States, the Formula One season took off in Australia at Melbourne. Burning the midnight oil in the workshop, the AMG mechanics witnessed the first triumph of the Silver Arrow in Formula One since Monza in 1955, greatly boosting morale. Just then, the first carbon fiber monocoque was emerging fresh from the oven. Using thermovision, the structure was checked for any minuscule fractures, for example, at drilling points. On the screen, every potential weakness can be revealed.
There with that bit of blue, just on your. I know you can see it here. Yeah.
After the go-ahead for the monocoque, the mechanics warmed up for the final 100 meters against the clock. The season was to start in 4 weeks at Hockenheim. 2 weeks before that came the first test drive. During this fortnight, the lights never dimmed at AMG in Affalterbach. Motor racing is a team sport long before the first wheel rubs the track. These specialists, motivated by all around them, were out to build the GT racer. Can you feel that tension? Was the car going to fulfill its purpose? It was as if they were growing wings. There are 24 hours in a day, but there's still a night in reserve. And the boys' favourite eating place in those days was just around the corner. On the 118th day, the car earned its mark. Good Friday in Spain, the 128th day since the first sketch. Baptism on the track came at Jaromir, where our little one took its very first steps. The head of motorsports, Norbert Haug, calls from Brazil to inquire how things were going. But AMG chief, Hans-Werner Aufrecht, could hardly find the words.
Ja, fährt. Ja, ist draußen. Ne? Ja. Aber ja, sieht gut aus.
Over the Easter weekend, Bernd Schneider and Alexander Wurz put the young CLK GTR through an extensive test program. The car had to move in the right way, cohesive in its parts, demonstrating the guts of a winner. Its rivals were to be no less than BMW and Porsche. The results clocked up on the first test at Jaromir were superb. The general impression of how the new Mercedes ran, hugged the road and displayed power were all the indicators the company bosses needed to give the final go-ahead for the whole project. Those who do not wish to race can rest contentedly. After all the concentration on the essentials, a few finishing touches came on board. A little piece of homework for AMG was to build the first road version stipulated by FIA's technical rules in a mere 5 days. Not much time, but AMG had already developed the right rhythm for this gallop. According to the laws of the sport, a small series of open road cars is called for. At Mercedes, over 300 buyers' inquiries lay on the desk, testifying that this beauty could well end up as one of the most fascinating road races of our age. It is all a question of time, and the answer to that question is record speed. Only 4 months had passed between the first pencil strokes on the drawing board and the completion of 2 racing cars and a road version. A triumph for technicians, designers and mechanics, and for the decision-makers who made sure that the signal lights for the project went green. Serial number 1 of Mercedes CLK GTR for the open road, ratification by FIA's head of constructors, Gabriel Kadringer. It was Monday, the 8th of April, 6 days before the first race. A new Silver Arrow was on its way to a baptism of fire in Hockenheim. Tests and test benches or not, now came the moment of truth in the life of every racing car. The stage was set for the Mercedes CLK GTR. It was a bit like a fairy tale. In his very first qualifying in the streamlined Silver Baby, Bernd Schneider drove fastest time and pole position. Everywhere it went, the new Merc attracted admiring glances. It left no one untouched, especially not the driver of the first hour, Bernd Schneider. I am really enthusiastic when one realizes just how little time they had to make the car. For the last 2 days, I've sweated it out with the boys in the workshop, which was a great opportunity, and that's very special to me. Straight away, I can tell you, the car felt incredibly good. Now, the new Silver Arrows will have to prove themselves in the worldwide FIA GT Series, a classy revival of the classic sports car and Gran Turismo scene. Races of this kind produce some of the great highlights of the sport's golden age. The Mercedes CLK GTR, silver creature of carbon fiber and high-tech, has all the markings of a classic of the future, and it carries 4 months of incomparable team spirit too. Hopefully it is in this sense that the new Mercedes GT racer will strike its path on the racecourses of the world. With the classical elegance of mercurial thought, sovereign, full of power, and yet fleet of foot.